Okay, so I'm going to try something a bit different today. I don't know how echoey it's going to be in here. Probably slightly. Trying to find a decent place to actually record, but it's not as easy as it would sound. So if I'm in the bedroom, you can either hear the outside or you can hear the fan, and in here there's a dull noise which I don't even know what is, but I do know that when the lift goes off you can hear it. Whether it will get picked up is another question, but it's the quietest place that I can think of. And I've not been keeping up with this very well at the moment. I'm going to try again. So the video that has the most views is the one that's called Spiral Arms. I'm going to take a wild guess and say it's just because it has a better name than the others. So I'm going to emulate that a little bit. But I also know some of the ones in between then and now were not particularly well recorded. And I've been looking on the Instagram, which isn't always the best place for motivation. But what I found is that everyone's working. It seems to be that you reset your Instagram account when you suddenly start doing something, big and interesting. And so what you find is that there's no steps to follow. There's no one who's got all of this stuff that I can see from the beginning to the end of the sort of project. They just show you a project that's already halfway, which I guess, it gives the impression that they're very impressive, but maybe it's me as an artist. I like to see how the sausage is made, so to speak, because I find that to be one of the more interesting parts of it. And I have seen nowadays it seems to be you almost have to do that just to stop people yelling AI at you. Don't really know. I don't think it matters that much, to be honest. Depends why you're making it, I guess. I was just looking at some people who were making money doing things, and one of the things that jumped out at me was the quality of paper they were using. So this is, I think, what does it say? Sketching paper, A5, so 135 GSM. And someone I was looking at was using 300 and something GSM, and I was like, well, no wonder they're getting this wonderful effect. And they're using their watercolours. They're using very high GSM paper, but obviously, I think for the majority of stuff, it's really impractical. So I think you'd have to know you were making a showpiece, and obviously, if you're just starting, you're not going to have that sort of equipment. So I always find it a little bit biased, because you sort of look at these people who are very professional and you're like, oh wow, look at the skill there. Part of it's the equipment. Not to say that it's not skilled, that's not what I'm saying. I think it's at the beginning you definitely compare yourself to people who are much more skilled, and it's perhaps not a good idea. But, it's what we do. But at the moment, what I've taken from it is, so I think you can go down that rabbit hole of comparing yourself. But instead, what I have done It's just when I see a good idea, I steal it. And I think that's a good policy. I remember I said this to a friend of mine, and he quoted me a phrase from somewhere where he said, smart people borrow, geniuses steal. And I think there's some truth in that, because I think you just have to, even if you copy something and try and copy it absolutely, it won't come out that way, and possibly nobody will notice you've made that connection. And even if they do, you can just say, oh, it's inspired, or it's, that was my reference, or whatever. But as long as you're creating something yourself, no one can say anything really, because the brain doesn't remember anything quite properly. I think that's the part of the issue with the AI thing. It's just that they do remember everything perfectly, so they can regurgitate things, whereas the human can't. It's not possible. So in the act of attempting to regurgitate, quite often you create something unique, but the AI won't do that. It will just regurgitate. It does it very well. Interesting, I did see someone talking about it, saying if an AI can copy your work and consistently create work like yours, you're probably quite successful, because you'll have developed a style which the AI can copy, which I think is telling, because it's obviously, if there's no styles to copy, the AI can do nothing. You do understand why people are annoyed, but time will march on, however much you complain. I just happen to be an observer. Oh, I can hear the lift. Don't know if that's being picked up. I am looking at sound waves, but I mean it must be imperceptibly quiet when it's picking up. Just hear the doors closing. So I don't know if this is a spiral arms. It's a spiral jumble, I guess. It also occurred to me that this is almost by accident, but when I put the microphone on, I found myself talking in a much lower tone than normal. Partially because I realised if I talk at a normal level, the audio goes up and down and up and down, which might be quite jarring. And because I'm not particularly good with the whole sound thing, the videos too have an ASMR quality to them. And then the pens I never even considered. I'm not a big ASMR person, but I know people who do really enjoy it, so I can sort of understand. But then I also realised that no, I'm not getting much traction, but I'm also not putting ASMR in the description, which perhaps is a mistake, because whether intentional or not, that is the kind of content that I'm making. I might not always make this sort of content, but at the moment it is what it is. And I've branded myself as an artist, which I think is relatively fair. But obviously I like to just create things in general. And on my Instagram the other day, I haven't made much in a while. So I was walking in the country park that's nearby, which I am very grateful for, because where we lived before was heavily urban. So that park is just, it's amazing. But there's a little stream, and what I do sometimes is I walk and I do some just calming therapy, things like that, just talking to myself through things. And what I found myself doing was I made a little dam in the river instead, and it's just the act of making something. And one of the things I was very pleased with, it was just something I never even considered when I began, was that it made a sound. So when you go past a little river and you hear that trickly sound, and then there was another one, and I'd made that one. And it was kind of cool, I thought. Add something to, what is essentially an almost completely natural backdrop, and then you've added a little sound in, and no one could say it wasn't there before. I thought it was very fun. I did have a mild conversation with myself, as I want to do, but it was just this moment of clarity. I feel when you go to create things, it's like, I think it's quite common that we question it, like, why am I making this? Is there a point? Is it just a waste of time? And making this little, dam out of twigs in the river, I realised that the current in the little stream was going to wash it away eventually. Like, it was going to push it away because it's only made of some twigs. And I realised it's quite poignant, because I think everything we create will eventually be destroyed. No matter how popular you are, how many people see it, like, eventually there won't be anything. And I think that, it could be very depressing. You're like, oh, well, that just proves the point. There is no point in making stuff. But the thing I thought to myself was, if anything, it means that we should create as many things as possible. Because otherwise, there won't be anything here. So if we want there to be cool and nice things, we need to make as much as we can. So it's sort of not only a push, create the thing, don't worry about its longevity, because everything goes the way of the dodo. But we should create more things, because eventually, because otherwise there'll be nothing here in the meantime. And I think they sort of almost exist because, but also, if you're that way inclined, I think you need to create because, for some master reason, just because. And I don't look at these and think, oh, it's a masterpiece. But what I do think when I finished it and when I've uploaded it is, I made a thing, and I added to the creation. People can see it. If anyone asks me, oh, what are you about? What do you do? I can send them somewhere. I think it's incredibly satisfying. And I think that's what I would advise to anyone. Just make something. I mean, this isn't anything like I thought it would be. It's not the sort of reflective, perfect project that I think you might have. When you're watching your YouTube and you watch these artists, probably got a team behind them, things like that. And then you're like, oh yeah, I would make this thing and it would be really high quality, it'd be really good. Yeah, I think the truth is none of us start there, and I think even thinking that can sometimes be a barrier. I would just suggest do something, and by all means steal my idea. please. Just do some doodle logs, talk to the camera. You know, if you want to do facing, do that. I find it easier not to, just because I don't have to think about what I look like, what time of day it is. I can just pop in and steal 20 minutes. And it makes all the difference to my day, because I've created something. So I think if you're creatively inclined, you just have to make something. One of the things I found kind of funny. So, okay, Spiral Arm's got quite a few views. I mean, it's probably only like 60 or something, but it's quite a lot when you've not done a lot of this. 60 people, at least saw it when they watched the whole thing. I don't know. Don't think they give you access to the analytics until you've got a decent following. But the one that that's probably the most like a tutorial, where I talk about a couple of techniques I've used, and I even bring in some reference material. That's the one that has no views at all. It's like, I did think that was very interesting. I thought that if it didn't have any views, that would be upsetting. But I guess I'm too bloody old, because it was just funny to me. And I think that's how you gotta look at it. It's an experiment. If it's your baby, I think you're gonna struggle. You just think of it as an experiment. You can always delete a YouTube channel if you feel like you need to, or you could start a different one if you've got like a more highfalutin idea, or you can just leave it as, evidence that you didn't start at the top, which I think is nice. I think CGP Grace is like a badge of honor, like you leave the bad ones. It's all perspective. I think just to begin with, you have an idea. It's nice to look back on as well and just see whether or not you continued the style you used, whether you had this style at the beginning and it's developed. I mean, obviously it's me talking, so it's going to be elements of that all the way down, I guess, as long as I'm talking. And being very conscious of whether I'm putting ums in, because in honesty I don't normally speak that way, and if I'm speaking to a crowd I don't either, but when you're recording to a microphone it is a different discipline altogether. And I know I've done a few ums because you just become very conscious of it, and there's probably some other verbal tick that I'm doing that we'll have to smooth out with time. But we'll see how it goes. And perhaps I do need to find some software that can help me pull that background noise out. And if anyone has any suggestions, please suggest, because I have no clue. I'm not a big video production person. I just want to make the art, really. If someone else could do that bit, that would be amazing, but I just need to know the basics, because I just want to make some stuff and share it with some people. Okay, and that's time.